Hello. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you and welcome to Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. uh, Ditch the doubt, own the room, and embody your power. That's what we are here to explore. So, I have a question for you. How many of you have prepared for weeks, maybe even longer, for an important presentation, right? Or difficult conversation in your life, and like you had it all together. You had the thoughts, you've rehearsed it, you've practiced, you feel pretty confident. Like, I know what I'm going to say. I know how I'm going to say it. And then the moment that you enter into the room, everything stops. You forget everything. Your heart starts racing. Your hands get clammy. You can't remember why you're here, right? Your voice is shaky, etc. Yeah, I've done that too. So here's an interesting question. What if I told you that your body was actually not betraying you at all? Right? Many of us can feel betrayed. Like, come on, body, I thought we were on board. And the reality is that it's actually trying to protect you from what it perceives to be a threat. And sure, it's not a physical threat. You're not in physical danger. Nobody's holding a gun. But there is a threat of being truly seen or judged or rejected, right? There is an emotional threat here. So before we get started, I want to introduce myself. I'm Michelle Maree. I am a trauma-trained therapist turned transformational coach. I've spent almost 2 decades helping high-achieving, brilliant women recognize that the path to authentic power is not actually through here. It's through befriending your body's innate wisdom. And we're going to explore 3 transformational shifts: how to ditch the doubt, how to own the room, and how to embody your power. So first, let's talk about doubt. Doubt isn't actually a thought problem. It's a nervous system problem. Crazy, right? When I work with brilliant women entrepreneurs, they tell me all of the secret voices in their head, the ones that they don't share with anybody, that say, I'm afraid if I stop performing, I will disappear and become invisible. I resent how much I've done for others and how little I truly feel seen. She's so much more graceful and confident and put together than I am. I mean, why even bother? Here's my personal favorite. I just need to push through this. I will rest after I get the next thing done. Right? Sometimes I fantasize about just burning it all down and starting all over again because I just can't handle this. Or if I actually said what I thought and felt, everybody would ghost me. I can't let them say how messy I am inside because then they won't take me seriously. Or people will think I'm conceited or egotistical, and I don't want to be like Aunt Martha, who sucks all of the energy out of the room every time she opens her mouth. But here's the thing. Here's what I've learned. That voice or those voices are not coming from your head. It's coming from your body's memory of not feeling safe to be powerful. Like a line of dominoes, it remembers every single time that you felt unsafe showing up fully or unsafe in your power. Doubt shows up as the shallow breathing when you're about to speak your truth, or a collapsed chest and racing heart when you think about raising your prices, a churning stomach when you consider putting yourself and your work out there in the world, tension in your jaw when you want to say no, but you say yes anyway. We think we need to argue with doubt, right? Convince it that we're worthy, push through it. But doubt is actually useful information. It's your nervous system saying, I remember when being visible was not safe. And the work is not to eliminate the doubt. It's actually to expand your capacity to feel powerful alongside it. Take that in for a second. To feel powerful alongside the doubt is the goal, not getting rid of anything. So I want to take a moment and talk about owning the room. What does that even mean? When most people think about owning the room, they picture someone who commands attention, right? Being the loudest voice, taking up the most space, or being the most beautiful, right? But that's not what I mean at all. Owning the room actually means being so deeply connected with your own center to you that you become like a gravitational force that pulls people in rather than demanding attention, right? Can you feel the energetic difference between I demand your attention and I'm going to sit here and breathe and invite you into my presence, right? I remember being fascinated as a teenager by those who didn't speak much and didn't take up a lot of space, but when they did talk, whoo, you could hear a pin drop. I had a mentor like that. It's like every time that she spoke, the entire room shifted. People leaned in, the energy focused. She owned that room, but not through force, through her deep presence. Did you know that when you're truly centered in your body, your nervous system actually sends signals of safety to everybody around you? I know that we talk about this in trauma work as co-regulation, but this happens anytime that you speak, right? The more grounded and focused and clear you are when you speak, the more people end up feeling safe and relaxed and open to hearing what you have to say, right? They're more open in your presence because your regulated nervous system is actually communicating safety to theirs. I've got a lot of experience working with this when I worked with at-risk youth who had pretty significant mental health challenges. They would pace and get really escalated, and I could join them. I could buy into their panic and escalate things further. I could argue with them or make demands, but none of that was going to work. The calmer I was, the more I didn't buy into what was happening in front of me. I didn't, what's the word? I can't think of the word, overly connect with the emergency, right? The energetic emergency that was happening in front of me. I would just stop and ground and root and listen and reflect. And the calmer that I became, the softer they became. And then they would join me and they would sometimes even cry. The strongest energy in the room is not the biggest and loudest or most flashy. It's actually the most rooted and connected. So I'm going to share with you 2 examples of magnetism. One is getting pulled into the vortex of the shiny, energy-packed illusion. It's like seeing a glittery carnival ride, loud music flashing, flashing lights spinning, right? And it's super thrilling, super engaging, but you quickly realize that you're dizzy or disoriented and unsure how you got strapped into this ride in the first place. And resonance, on the other hand, is like someone stepping into a warm cabin after a snowstorm. You didn't even realize you were cold until you felt the fire and began to melt, right? You smelled the soup and your shoulders dropped. You take off your coat and hat and shoes and maybe even your socks and you settle in and get comfortable, right? You can exhale. You feel safe, met, and real. That's true resonance and true magnetism. One is driven by adrenaline. It hooks your attention through intensity or charm, and the other is co-regulation, right? It's not about being dazzled. It's about feeling your system soften. Real resonance does not demand attention. It invites your presence. And I don't know about you, but I want my clients to stay with me, not to get burnt out on me, right? And most of us, we actually leak our power without even knowing it, right? And some of the ways that we leak our power is overthinking, right? Thinking it to death, over preparing, mentally rehearsing over and over to cover every single possible base instead of really just dropping in and trusting our own expertise. Have you ever heard someone like rattle off every single modality that they've ever learned and you're just like, could you just tell me how I will feel when we're done? Right? We apologize before we've done anything wrong, like do the pre-script about like, oh, this might happen and that might happen and I might screw up and I might do this to cover our bases, right? Or we make ourselves smaller so that we can make other people feel more comfortable, right? Don't outshine so-and-so because that's going to be bad. Owning the room is not about taking something from others. It's about stopping the leaks of your own power. I just want to repeat that one, right? Owning the room is not taking anything from anybody. It's actually about stopping your power leaks and bringing yourself back to yourself so that you are in the full juiciness of everything that you have to offer. Power is a felt sense. We've actually been taught that power is something that you acquire, right? You take it. It's something you have to fight for, something that requires you to be harder or louder or more aggressive. But feminine power, the kind that creates true lasting change, is something that you embody, right? It's a felt sense that lives in your body. It is not a strategy that lives in your head. We live in a culture that worships the mind, logic, analysis, strategy, and don't get me wrong, those are incredibly useful. I'm not saying throw those away. The mind is brilliant at solving problems, taking action, organizing information, creating plans, but the mind is not where truth lives. The mind implements what the body knows. When we overthink, we actually disconnect from that deeper knowing. Real creation doesn't happen here. It happens in the body through sensation. How does that feel, right? It's through images that like come up without you even trying, right? It's the words that come out of your mouth magically. I can't tell you how many times that's happened in a session where I'm like, did I just say that? I don't think that was me, right? And we could see that as divine intervention or, collective unconscious or whatever it is we call it. But your system actually has to be open enough to receive those signals, right? Through felt sense. And then when it comes out and you see the way that the other person reacts, there's nothing like that, right? It's so powerful. So the tiny, quiet signals that don't shout at you, but resonate, that is power. And we have it bass backwards in our society. The mind serves and the body knows and creates. Do you think a famous artist thinks they're painting? No, they embody it. It flows from somewhere inside of them, and we all have access to that kind of creative power. And it's the feminine way. And I'm not talking feminine as in gender, but more in principle, right? Rooted, receptive, emergent, wise. But we live in a masculine world. Our business structures were created by men. It values speed and scientific method. And if I can't prove it, it doesn't exist, and productivity. But we all know the truth, don't we? That intuition is actually our superpower. Felt sense is our superpower. Our world teaches us to think our way through everything. Think through that decision. Think through the creativity. Think through the healing. Think through your relationship. So it makes sense that most of us try to, think our way into clarity, to map it all out, to figure it all out, to do it right, to get it right. But what if clarity doesn't actually come from figuring anything out? What if it comes from feeling it through? Feeling an idea land in the body with a grounded yes or no, right? And moving from that place rather than the mind map, right? The mind map is useful, but not until we have tapped into the truth that lives in the body and whether this is a good idea or not from the body. So when I talk about embodiment, I don't just mean getting out of your head. I actually mean coming home to a place inside of you that already knows and letting your mind serve that knowing, but not override it. I do this so much, have to slow myself down, right? Take a breath, like shake my body, like make silly faces, do whatever I've got to do to like get out of the mind trap and into how does this feel? Is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to offer? Something that I want to support people with, right? And this is the shift from pushing to listening, right? From performance to presence, from what should I do to what do I feel and sense and know right now in this moment. When you learn to listen from the body, everything changes. Your voice becomes clearer, your choices become cleaner, your presence becomes magnetic because you aren't delivering information. You are being, you are transmitting truth, and truth in connection is power. I do want to give a little caveat here. There is a difference between instinct and intuition. And I want to point this out because when working with the body, when you're dealing with a trauma survivor, right? Working with a trauma survivor, honoring a trauma survivor's experience, there can be a lot of confusion about the difference between intuition and instinct. So, very simply, instinct is a fear response that is designed to protect you, right? It's the feeling. And the other is a quiet but firm and strong yes or no. And those of us with trauma can struggle to discern between the two, which is why somatics and embodiment work is absolutely vital in trauma healing. And your trauma is going to show up in your business, right? So I'd love to tell you about a moment that really helped all of this kind of click in for me. I was doing my first brain spotting training. I'm a brain spotting practitioner. And I heard one of the creator's phrases, most powerful teachings, Dr. David Grand. And he says, follow the tail of the comet. And it hit me like a revelation. Let go of control. Stop trying to fix. Trust the body in front of you knows where it's going. My job, hold space, stay present, right? Maybe offer a nudge if it's needed, some humor if it's needed, but never force, never leading. And I'd heard versions of this before in hypnotherapy and somatics, but this felt different. Like it landed more solidly in my system. I finally got this on a visceral level. And I got to say, that is probably the most common thing I hear in my work is that I know this intellectually. I know I'm smart. I know I'm successful. I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm whatever. But it's like the rest of me is not on board with that information. The rest of me does not get it. Right? This process asked me not to know, to be a witness and not an expert like I had been trained to be. It was terrifying and also incredibly liberating, right? Just follow, just follow. Because when I let go, my clients dropped in faster and they stopped waiting for me to deliver the perfect intervention and actually started finding their wisdom inside themselves. And it changed everything, including the way that I speak on stages. I've been on stages since I was 7 years old. So performing, got that. That's easy. I know how to show up. But speaking as me about my work, about my tender heart, about the things that I want to offer into the world, whew, that is where the fear lived. I would over prepare, clutch my notes, rehearse every word. I would speak well because I can cold read pretty well, thank you, acting training, but I didn't actually feel connected to my audience, right? In fact, during my first big said, Michelle, it's really clear that you are passionate about your work and that you have a ton of experience and knowledge and wisdom. I would encourage you to trust that and ditch the cards next time. Yeah, truth bomb. So I did my own brain spotting. I deepened into somatic work and embodiment. And one day I was asked to speak off the cuff about my business. No script, just 3 minutes. So I stood, I closed my eyes and took a breath. I smiled and made slow eye contact with everybody in the room. And then I began. And I didn't experience the nerves and the performance. I just was there speaking from my heart, and it felt so good. And when I finished, women came up to me lit up, like they couldn't even explain why. They just felt it and felt hunger for the work because I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just simply being. Your power is not in your ability to control the outcome. It's in your capacity to stay present with whatever is happening. And when you can remain connected to your own center while holding space for intensity and uncertainty and challenge, that is embodied power. And even more, holding space for the expansion. That's where the real work is. I want to give you a direct experience of what embodied power feels like. And this is just a tiny practice, but I would love to share it with you. And it's a practice I use with clients before important presentations or difficult conversations, or really any moment where you kind of need to access your authentic authority. So I'm going to invite you, if you're watching either live or on the replay, and just take a moment and sit up tall, wherever you're seated, on the floor, on your bed, on your couch, on your chair. Just sit up tall for a moment, but not rigid. So notice the slight movement of your own breath, right? Letting some of the movement happen. And feel your feet on the ground if you can, or feel the weight of your thighs or your butt on the chair if your feet aren't touching the ground. And just take a few breaths here in this heavy bodied place, right? If you need to do some wiggles, do some wiggles. And what I'd love for you to imagine is that the front of your body is soft, right? Like, just notice if you're bracing your belly at all, or if your shoulders are tight, or if you haven't taken a big deep breath in a while, and just soften the front. And then I'd love for you to imagine that there is almost like a clear column in front of your spine, right? Where with every breath, you can feel the energy move. And when we do this, when we imagine this column, this central column inside of our body, thank you, Mishka Reeds, this allows things not to get stuck, right? So my thoughts don't get stuck here. This feeling that I'm noticing doesn't get stuck here. It's just allowed to be there, but it's also moving, right? And then take a moment and just rest slightly back further into your spine, like you're giving your spine the message, hey, I got you. I got your back, right? And place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, your power center. And take a breath, maybe make some sound or get some of the wiggles out. And then imagine as you hold your own body and you're held by the chair or the floor, imagining some grounding cords moving out through your spine, through the base of your spine, traveling down deep into the earth. And just take a moment there to make connection. To feel or sense that cord tapping into the energy of the earth, this beautiful generative energy of the earth. And perhaps there's even two cords where with a breath in, you're pulling up this dynamic aliveness from the earth. And with the breath out, just letting go. Anything that needs to be let go of. Tension in your body, thoughts from earlier today. Just notice the balance of pulling in this beautiful energy, this aliveness, this I am here energy, and letting go of anything that needs to be put into the earth. She's a great composter, right? She knows what to do and turns shit into fertilizer, right? So just let it all go. And then take a moment to, as you notice the feeling of your hand on your chest and on your belly, and this being held by the chair and the earth who's supporting the foundation underneath the building that you're in, and the ground itself, right? Ask yourself, what does power feel like? Just keep repeating that to yourself. What does power feel like? Don't think it. Let it come from in your body, right? It might be a warm flush. It might be a desire to open your arms and take up a little bit more space, right? To expand. It might be a deep, heavy dropping into your hips. It might be an awareness of the strength of your own spine and moving your chest out just a little bit. Your hands on your hips. Just take some time to feel into that question, to play a little bit with, what does power feel like in my body? Continuing to breathe, maybe even making sound as you keep checking in. What does my power feel like? Where does it live in my body? How does it move? Does it spin in circles? Is it rooted and grounded? What does it feel like? Everybody's is going to feel different. There is no right or wrong answer here. Whatever comes, just breathe into it. This felt sense of power is not something that you have to manufacture, right? It's something that you remember. And if you don't remember, that's actually your task. Go through and find experiences in your life where maybe you stood up for yourself, or you said the hard thing, or you took the risk, or you opened up to somebody. Just find a small moment. It doesn't have to be a huge one, just a small moment where you felt a sense of personal agency and power, and take a moment and anchor that. Feel it even more. So when you're ready, opening your eyes, and I know that it was such a small amount of time. Usually I like to really drop people in deeply to let them just kind of go on a journey and see what comes up. And I know that this was short, and you can take this replay and maybe do it a few more times, right? So when you learn to ditch the doubt and own the room and embody your power, it doesn't just change your business, it actually changes all of your relationships in your life, right? Your children feel your steady presence, your partner experiences you as more authentic and available, your clients trust you more deeply, and not because you're performing trustworthiness. Trust me, right? You're living it. I have clients who use these crazy practices that I introduce to them to raise their prices without apologizing, to post what's burning in their chest but terrifies them to say, right? Who lead from love rather than reactivity when they're setting a boundary, right? Who create juicy, rich content that really attracts their ideal clients because they're speaking from their heart, and they lead in a way that makes people feel seen and valued, even if they disagree with them. So if this is resonating in any way for you, if you're feeling the stir of, oh crap, I never really thought about that, or maybe this is really what I've been needing and I didn't even know it, then I want to invite you to join me for something powerful. And the offering is that I have an upcoming 3-hour workshop called Speak from the Center. This will be on June 14th online. And this is not a speaking class, right? It's not speech. It's an embodied confidence experience. It's 3 hours of practices and practical tools and a powerful reclamation of how it feels to embody your power. So we'll learn some somatic tools to center yourself before you speak. You'll shift your mindset about what confidence really is. You will practice speaking from your body and not a performance mask. So yeah, you got to be ready to push the edge a little. You'll leave with tools that you can use immediately for meetings or interviews or Facebook Lives, right? And you'll understand and feel the difference between confidence that is, I'm trying to grab from outside of me, and confidence that comes from inside of me, right? From this rooted, grounded place. So if you're ready to stop contorting yourself into Instagram, whatever, and start showing up from a place of true power, not just polish, then I would love for you to join me. My hope is that you will leave feeling that your body is no longer working against you. It's actually working for you. Just that shift itself, that your body is actually working for you, is huge. Because it actually always has been, right? You'll understand how to access your authentic authority in any room, whether it's a boardroom, a networking event, going live on social media. This isn't about becoming a better speaker. It's about becoming more of yourself. It's about trusting that your unedited truth, your brilliance, your weirdness, your passion is exactly what the world needs to hear. And I would love to have you in the room, because women like you, when you step into your embodied power, it has a ripple effect, right? That is the feminine. When we heal, it spreads out everywhere, right? And we desperately need powerful women right now. So I want to let this land. You are not too much. You're not unprepared. You're not broken. You are wired for truth. You are built for presence. You are meant to lead from your body, not just your brain. Your brilliance isn't what you say precisely or perfectly, right? It's in what you allow to rise from within you when you finally trust the wisdom that lives in your bones. This work isn't about becoming someone new. It's about peeling back the layers of the onion of who you think you should be or who you were told you should be to reveal the power that was always there. You were born knowing how to be powerful. I mean, watch any teenager, right? No. Somewhere along the way, we learn to edit ourselves. So many stories that our nervous system stored and has learned to protect you from. But this is actually about coming home to yourself. Your body is not the enemy of your success. It's the gateway to your authentic impact. And when you ditch the doubt that lives in your nervous system and you own the room through your embodied presence and you trust the power that is rising from within you, you become unstoppable. And not because you're hard or demanding, because you are present and real. The world needs embodied, unapologetic truth tellers. So I invite you to get out of your head and get into your life. Thank you. So I am happy to look in the chat if anybody is watching and has questions. I'm also happy to answer questions after the fact. If someone watches this and they're curious about a particular piece, I will be putting a link in here for the 3-hour workshop. And I have a special link for you all that also gives you kind of a pre-talk checklist. And pre-talk doesn't always have to be about speaking for your business. It can actually be about having a really difficult conversation. It could be about, doing a speech or showing up at a networking group to do your 30-second spiel or whatever it might be. But they're just a few little tricks and tools that you can use to ground yourself, to reframe, like, what am I really doing here? Why am I sharing this information in the first place, etc. And I would absolutely love to see you there. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.